Welcome back again. Yesterday we discussed about cosets and certain properties of cosets, and we have seen that if G is a group and A is any element of G and H is a subgroup of G, then we can talk about cosets. And cosets are the subsets or the sets of the form like they are denoted by AH equals to they are the collection of the form of elements of the form like this AH. Okay, and similarly we also talked about what are the right cosets. So essentially they are a collection of elements of this form. Okay, fine. So these many and after that we discussed when two cosets are equal and when they are exactly equal or they are disjoints. Okay, and what is the number of elements in a cosets when two cosets are same, that is when a left coset and right coset are same. So all these properties we have discussed, and also we have seen when a given coset, left or right coset, becomes a subgroup of the group G. So these are the things we have discussed in the last lecture. Today we are going to continue our discussion further, and the main topic for today's discussion is the Lagrange's theorem. And of course, we will be talking about some what is called consequences of Lagrange's theorem. So let us see first what is the Lagrange's theorem by means of some example. So if we take suppose for example Q8, okay, and Q8, the order of Q8, this is a group of order 8, okay, and we can talk about the divisor of this number, that is order of Q8. So divisors of it 8 are 1, then 2, then we have 4, then we have 8. Okay, so there are 4 divisors of in fact I'm talking about the positive divisors of 8. Okay, so these are the possibilities of order of subgroups that Q8 can have. Okay, so if H is a subgroup, H is a subgroup of Q8, so it has the possibility, if this is a subgroup of Q8, then H may have order 1 or 2 or 4 or 8. But thing is that essentially that if H is a subgroup, we are considering that H is a subgroup of G, then this can have order like this. Okay, fine. But converse need not be true, that corresponding to each divisor of 8, we have a subgroup of that particular order. Okay, so that we know that we have some example in favor of that. And that example is that A4, that is alternating group in 4 symbols. This is order 12, and divisors. Okay, and the divisors of 12 are 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and 6, 12. Okay, but A4 has no subgroup of order 6, that you can see in an example. Okay, why A4 cannot have a subgroup of order 6, that is explained in I guess example number 5 of your textbook. Okay, in the chapter number 7, that the chapter we are currently discussing. Fine. So thing is that the order of subgroups divides order of group. So this is the statement of Lagrange's theorem. Okay, order of subgroup divide order of group. Okay, so thing is that if we try to discuss more deeply, so if someone asks, suppose you have a group G of order suppose 12. Okay, G is a group of order 12. So what is the possibility? So if suppose someone asking that uh, for then let G be a group of order 12, then which is not correct. So first you can have so many options. G may have a subgroup of order 1. Second, G may have a subgroup of order 4. G may have a subgroup of order 12. And then sorry, third, this is the fourth. G may have a subgroup of order 5. Okay, so in very first sight you will decline this one. Okay, so this is wrong. Fine, that because 5 doesn't divide 12. So only possibilities of order of subgroup is the divisors of that order of that particular group. Okay, so a group of order 12 cannot have a subgroup of order 5 in very first sight. And also if you talk about a group, this group of order 12 cannot have a subgroup of order 7. This cannot have a subgroup of order 9. Fine. So like this. So only possibilities are these. These are the possibilities. Okay. Then of course, corresponding to all divisors, we may not have a subgroup of that group. But thing is that the possibilities are they are the candidate. They are the candidate of order of subgroups. Okay. So among these elements, which are the divisor of the order of group, we are supposed to check. Fine. So here is the Lagrange's theorem. It says that if G, one more thing you should note that this is true for finite order group. Okay. So if G is a group of finite order and H is a subgroup of G, then order of H divides order of G. Moreover, the number of distinct right or left cosets of H in G is G order of G divided by order of H. And this is denoted by G and GH like this. Okay, G colon H, and then you can write 2 vertical lines, and this is called index of H in G. Okay, index of H in G. So that I will tell. Okay, let us see how we can prove this. We will be using the properties of cosets to prove this result. Fine. So let us assume order of G is finite and H be a subgroup of G. H be a subgroup of G. Suppose AI belongs to G. Of course, I should be some fixed finite number 1, 2 up to n, because G is a group of finite order. Okay. Let you know that A essentially has to be a member of AH. Fine. So corresponding each AI, we have one AIH. Okay. So and also we know that 2 left or right cosets, that is AH and BH, either they are equal or they are totally disjoint, that we know. Fine. So because of course they are either exactly same or totally disjoint. This we have seen. Okay. We were discussing the properties of a coset. Fine. So here, as we know, here we can note that if AI belongs to AIH, then this AI cannot be belongs to, or this, that is A1 cannot belongs to A to H. Okay. Otherwise, both will be same, exactly same. Okay. Both will be exactly same because either they are exactly same or they are totally disjoint. So these are the things. So without loss of any generality, we can assume that A1H, A2H, and ANH denote the distinct left and right cosets. One more thing you should note that I have not assumed that order of G is n, but I have assumed that there are some distinct element here, AIR, distinct element, okay, corresponding to which we are getting distinct, or these are the elements, AIR elements of G, and corresponding to them we are getting some distinct left coset, or you can write corresponding right cosets also. Okay. Because for distinct element we may have same cosets. Fine. So our assumption is that they are distinct left cosets. I think left cosets. Let us not write right coset. Distinct left or right coset. If you are considering right cosets, okay. Let us just a minute. So they are distinct left cosets. Okay. So since AI belongs to AIH, so G equals to A1H union A2H union dot AN H. Okay. ANH. And since A1H, A1H, A2H, ANH, they are distinct, so therefore the number of elements in the left hand side will be equal to the sum of number of elements in the right hand side. So A2H and plus ANH. Okay. And this is equals to order of H plus order of H plus order of H, because AIH, order of AIH equals to order of H. That we know already. Okay. So they are in numbers, n in numbers. So this is equals to n times of H. Fine. So this should imply that order of H divides order of G. Okay. And this is denoted, I mean to say that this is denoted by G and then colon and then H. Okay. And just we put lines, vertical lines before and after this notation. Okay. Is called index of H in G. Index of H in G. And sometimes they used to write like this, index of H in G, like this. Okay. This is also a notation. So I think things are clear to you. But what we are getting, we are counting the number of distinct left or right cosets here. Okay, and then we are writing them as a union of. Then we are writing G as union of those distinct left or right cosets, and then we are taking modulus. I think I mean the number of elements in the left and right hand sides. So after taking summation, we are arriving at that number of elements in G equals to n times H. And this implies that order of H divides order of G. Okay. So next corollary, this is about index of G, index of H in G. Okay. So if G is a finite group and H is a subgroup of G, then index of H in G equals to order of G divided by order of H. So that's in, this is a very much, this is a direct implication of the last theorem that we wrote that A union, G is a union of distinct cosets, okay, and AI belongs to G, I from 1 to N, and because AI are distinct, AI, H are distinct or disjoint, okay, distinct or disjoint. So order of G, so number of distinct cosets equals to n times order of H. Okay, so we are counting the number of distinct cosets of H in G. So they are denoted by this. Okay, so this symbol. So we write G colon H. This is equals to order of G divided by order of H. So remember that you should remember that this is equals to number n. Okay, and please do note that this is, I have already mentioned in the last theorem while proving the last theorem that n is not the order of group, but these are the elements we have selected for which we are getting distinct left or right cosets. Okay, so please do note that n is not the order of group. So next corollary to that theorem is that order of A divides order of G. So for this, let G be finite. G be a finite group. G be a finite group, and A is some element in G. A is some element in G. Okay. Then, as you know, in the beginning, in fact, or in the midway, we discussed the cyclic group. Okay, so because A is a finite group, so each element of G should have a finite order, and each element should generate a group which is cyclic. Okay, so A generates a cyclic group, and this is denoted by this notation, and the order of this is nothing but order of that element. Fine. So since this is a subgroup, this is equals to H, for instance, let this is equals to H, and this is a subgroup of G that we know. Okay, this is a subgroup of G we know. So order of H should divide order of G by Lagrange's theorem. Okay, so this would imply that order of H is nothing but order of the group. Okay, divide order of G, that is, but order of a group is equals to the order of element here. So order of A should divide order of G. So this was what we supposed to prove, that order of element also divides order of group. Okay. So next corollary number 3, a group of prime order or groups of prime orders are cyclic. So a very important result of group theory So if G has order 5, so this would be cyclic. If this has order G has some prime P, okay, so this is going to be certainly a cyclic group. Okay, so thing is that you need to verify whether this is a prime or this is not a prime. So group of order 11, this would be a cyclic group. Group of order 17, group of order 17, okay, this is also going to be a cyclic group. Group of order 71, 71 is prime or what? 71, do you have any idea? I think it should be prime. Okay, so they are, in fact, if you take any prime here as order of group, then you will be getting a group of that particular order. Okay, so what do you feel that order of 1 is group? If order of group 1, a group is 1, then it is prime. 2, then it is prime. 3, then it is prime. Okay, we are not sure about 4, but we will see later. Okay, what about 5 prime? Okay, 7 prime. So the group of order, first group of order 1, 2, 3, first 3 group, these groups are prime. Order group of order, these 1, 2, 3 are prime. Group of order 6, 5 is prime. 7 is group of order 7 is cyclic. Group of order 5 is cyclic. Okay. But we are not sure about this, but we will see later that group of order 4 is whether cyclic or not. So do you have any idea? Every group of order 4 is cyclic or what? Or do you have any example against this? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any example of order 4 which is not a cyclic group? You should remember something. V4, this is abelian but not cyclic, you know. Okay, so you can have a group of order 1 which is cyclic, of order 2 which is cyclic, of order 3 which is cyclic, okay, of order 5 which is cyclic, of order 7 which is cyclic. Okay, but thing is that the cyclic group are not of order prime only, but they can have of order non-prime also. Okay, so of course we know that that if we have an example of V4 which is not a cyclic, so in general we cannot say. Okay, of course of a group may be of order 4 which is cyclic, for example Z4, this is cyclic, this is cyclic, but we have another group also V4 which is non-cyclic. Fine. Okay, but thing is that every cyclic group is abelian. Every cyclic group is abelian, that we know. Cyclic, if a group is cyclic, then it is abelian. So group of order 1 is abelian, of order 2 is abelian because they are cyclic, and then group of order 3 is also abelian, group of order 4 is also abelian, and a group of order 5, because they are cyclic, so they are abelian. So any group of order 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 5, they are abelian. Okay, and a cyclic group can have this kind of order. Okay, but I mean in converse way, that if a group has order any of them, then that group is going to be a cyclic. Okay, fine. So let us see. Group of prime order is cyclic. Let us probe this result. Okay, so let G. They are telling that if group has order prime. Okay, so let order of G is prime P. P is prime. P is a prime. Okay, and suppose A belongs to G, and A is non-identity element. Okay, then order of A cannot be 1. Order of A cannot be 1. Then of course this particular element will generate a cyclic group. Okay, and cyclic group, in fact this is going to be a subgroup of G, and this should divide order of G by Lagrange's theorem. Fine. So that is the order of the group generated by A should divide P. So what are the possibilities for this? Order of A should be P, because the divisors, the positive divisors of P are 1 and P itself, because P is a prime. Okay, because P is a prime, and this prime P is nothing but order of G. Okay, this prime P is nothing but the order of G. So therefore, if a group has a prime order, then this should be a cyclic, and this element A is going to be a generator of that group. Next corollary number 4. This says that if G is a finite group, and A belongs to the order A belongs to the group G, then A raised to power order of G is equals to identity. Okay. So since G is finite, so order of any element should divide order of G. That we know in the previous corollaries. Okay, order of element A should divide order of G. So this would imply that order of G equals to some k times order of A for some positive integer k. Okay, so now we consider A raised to power order of G. So this is equals to A raised to power k times order of A. So this can be written as like this. Okay, so A to the power order of A is nothing but identity, A to the power k. So we have identity. Okay, but thing is that you should remember that it doesn't mean that order of A is order of G. Okay, but it simply means that order of A is a multiple of order of A. This order of A, of course, the order of A should divide order of G, but order of A will be a divisor of order of G. That's what it does. It is indicating here. Okay. Next we have Fermat's little theorem. So we will be using the previous theorem to prove this. So it says that for every integer A and every prime P, this should hold. Sometimes you must have seen that A to the power P minus 1 is congruent to 1 modulo P. Sometimes I think usually they used to write in books like this, in this form. Right? So essentially we are going to prove this result only, and of course you can multiply on both way by A inverse here to get this one, but for that we will see how we can do this. Okay, So because a is an integer, let us prove this one by division algorithm. By division algorithm, we can write a equals to p times m plus r, where r is greater than or equals to 0 and less than p, because p is a we are dividing a by p. Okay, so so this would imply that a minus r equals to p times m. That is what we mean to say, that a modulo p is equals to r. Okay, a modulo p is equals to r. It means that when we are dividing a by p, we are left with r remainder r. We are left with remainder r. So this is the equivalent way of saying this statement like this. Okay, we are equivalently saying this. So it is sufficient. It is sufficient to prove that because a is now equivalent to r, so we can prove r to the power p modulo p is equals to r. So this is what we are supposed to prove. Okay, so there are two cases. If r equals to, sorry, okay, yes, if r equals to 0, then of course the result is this is manifestly true. Then we are done, because once we are keeping here 0, so we are getting 0, and right in the right hand side also 0 we are getting. So in case if r is not 0 and of course greater than 0, okay, and r belongs to this group un, so I'm writing up. Okay, so elements which are less than p and relatively prime to p. So because p is a prime, so every element less than p will be relatively prime to p. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and up to p minus 1. So you are very much familiar with this group. There are p minus 1 elements here. Okay, so up, the order of up is equals to p minus 1. Fine. So if r is any element here, just we have proved that if a belongs to g, then a to the power order of g equals to identity. That we proved in the last quadrilateral. Okay, so using that result, r is any element here in up. Okay, from here you see r is greater than or equals to 0, so r is equals to 0 we have considered already. So next we are left with the consideration that r should be greater than 0 and strictly less than p. So what values r can take? 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1. Okay, because the remainder is going to be only non-negative and integers. So r raised to power order of up, this should be equals to 1, that is identity. Okay, so that is r to the power p minus 1 is should be equals to, because we are going to talk about or we are taking the operation as a multiplication modulo p. Okay, so this is modulo p, and this should be equals to 1, and this is equivalent to, or r to the power p modulo p is equivalent to or equals to r. Fine. So these are the this is the proof of this result. Okay, so this is example number 5 of your book, that the converse of Lagrange's theorem is false. So they are The same thing what I told you earlier, that A4 has order 12. You know that A4 order of this is n, or in general a, and order of an is n factorial by 2. So in case of A4, order of A4 is 4 factorial by 2, that is 24 by 2 equals to 12. So order of 12 is order of A4 is 12, and of course its divisors are 1 2 3 up to 1 2 3. Divisors of 12 are 1 2 3 4 6 and 12. Okay, but here in this example they are claiming that A4 cannot have a group of a subgroup of order 6. Okay, so we mean to say that order of subgroups divide order of group. Okay, but corresponding to each divisor we cannot have a subgroup necessarily. Okay, so हर divisor के corresponding हर डिवाइजर के करस्पॉन्डिंग कोई जरूरी नहीं है कोई सब ग्रुप हो ही. फाइन. So these are the things we are supposed to discuss today. Next topic is the product of subgroups. Okay, so I think we should start because it may take maybe one day, one whole lecture. So product of subgroups and then a normal subgroups and the normalizer. So all these things need to be covered. So let us stop or finish the discussion for today. We will meet tomorrow and discuss on PS strict in LaTeX class. Okay. So
Thank you for watching this video. To stay updated, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Cosmos Learning. Happy learning through Cosmos Learning. To watch more, click on any of these cards. Thank you once again.